racing was changing anyway, it was getting more competitive.
Particularly with Pete and probably 5 other drivers, you're not going to catch him because they're fast drivers.
I always filmed the races, just on a little camera.
We never really thought anything could go as wrong as it did.
I couldn't really see anything because I think Jane was holding on to me, sort of, I was facing her, and she was sort of saying, oh well, the helicopter's coming and that's a good thing because they'll look after him, but I didn't know at all what was going on.
And me and another mate of ours, Stephen Thacker, who was racing that day, we both walked over towards Pete's car. We seen him in his car, and I remember Steve looking at me. He had tears in his eyes and he said, he's gone. He's gone.
They were preparing to take him into theatre, and I think it was one of those where it was kind of very, obviously in that stage it was really touch and go. I can just remember going into like the A&E room, and just the first thing I saw was like all his overalls and clothes on the floor covered in blood. And then he just looked completely unrecognisable. He'd like swollen up and was all completely black and blue with bruises already. And he was, I think he was like intubated, but you could see like his chest wasn't like, he wasn't breathing, like, and it was just not nice. Obviously horrendous to see him and not be able to know what was going on.
Got a phone call, and they basically said that they've operated on Pete. They've stitched him up, but he's got internal bleeding. I remember taking the phone call, then driving off, and I got about 100 yards down the road. It just hit me and I broke down. And that's when it really, I thought, this is it.
It was just like hour by hour waiting, but they have like relatives' rooms where people can stay in the hospital, and I just took up one of those and basically didn't leave.
You take the risk when you get in a car. Waking up in hospital after the accident, I didn't know where I was. I looked at the doctor who was looking over me and said, do you know where you are? I looked at him and I said, am I in hospital? And he says, yeah. I said, oh shit. have I had a big un? And he just looked at my wife and said, what does he mean, has he had a big un? And when she says he means has he had a big crash. So he says, yeah, you've had a bad crash. He says, have you got any real questions? So I said, yeah, can you give Charlie a ring, tell him I'll be late for work? And he said, do you know what day it is? So I said, yeah, it's the 4th of May. He said, it's not the 4th of May, it's the 14th of May. You've been in a coma for 10 days, have a look at yourself. And I managed to look down and see these pipes in me. And then I went back to sleep again for a while.
They sort of said, well, we don't know how he will be till he wakes up. But it was a big, big relief when he did.
Apart from all the tubes he was attached to, it was almost like none of it had happened. Like, as soon as I could hear his voice, then that was just a turning point of knowing that he'd make it through.
When he did get home, I don't think he really was fit to be home. He couldn't even make it walking up the stairs.
I remember the day he came home, we joke about it, like there was a time where Dad just became really bossy because he was not able to do things for himself, so he'd be like, I want a cup of tea now. And he'd never been demanding, he'd always been pretty chill before, so we noticed that was kind of like, right, what do you need, what do you want?
It was sort of round the clock looking after him, but just he was there and that was what mattered.
So he compared himself to Michael Schumacher and how many times he won the Formula One, and he was just like, I want to do more championships than him.
The thing that was driving me on was just putting up a record for someone to try and beat, and someone had won the points 3 times, so when I got to 1 I thought I'd like to do it 5 times, when I got to 5 I thought I'd do 10.
There were conversations of him giving it up, but I think he wanted to end on a high.
So on the last day of my last race, I was racing 2 formulas, and I got a couple of guys helping me, so after each race I had to refuel the cars, check the water, and then get myself strapped in the next car. So it was a bit of a rush in between things. But in the bangers, I'd been taken out by someone, and I was on a mission to try and catch him back up, and across the figure of 8, I really took my eye off the ball and clipped someone who was coming the other way. The crash happened and I was cut out of the car and put into a land ambulance, and they realised there was something seriously wrong with me. The helicopter had been raised, and when they got to the scene I was quite agitated. Now, I don't really remember this. I think your brain puts you to sleep for a little while so it doesn't traumatise you. I got multiple injuries really, from the top down. The neck was broken in 3 places, 3 vertebrae. My shoulder blade had snapped clean off. My wrist was snapped through flailing out through the window. 7 ribs on this side and 3 ribs on that side. I'd punctured both lungs, but the worst thing was I'd ruptured my main aorta, which is from the aortic valve to your brain. It's your primary blood vessel really, that was ruptured. The paramedic at the track knew something was wrong because the neck was going black from the inside, so he was put into a panic, so that's why they asked for the helicopter to do the rapid transfer. Yeah, the doctors said I was very lucky to live and any contact sport would be a silly thing to do. Well, I wouldn't want to put my wife, children through any trauma. Plus, I'd raced for 26 years. I think to do a hobby for 26 years was quite a long hobby. At the Palace Hotel in Buxton there was a brass band playing and raising money for the air ambulance. So we took my mother-in-law, who was with me and Gill, and they asked the room, has anyone been saved by the air ambulance? And there was nobody answering. My mother-in-law got my arm, made me lift my arm up, which I could use my left arm, but not my right one. And so it must have been less than 6 months after the accident. She says, well, you could do something like this. And yeah, I probably could. They'd raised £1,000 that night, and I thought, yeah, I can do that. And it was a challenge for me then. If they can do 1,000, I can do 1,000. When it came to the fun run the next summer, we did about £6,000 on the day for the fun run.
It was one of my ideas, was just to do something to raise some money, but to give us something to focus on. We didn't know if Dad was going to be there or not, but he did get out of hospital and he was there, and the satisfaction of being able to do that and give something back, I think for all of us, was a massive thing.
It used to be a buzz if you won a race, but when you put money in the bank, you know you're saving someone's life.
Not many people know about the air ambulance, or you might have heard of it but don't realise that it's all charity. There's no government funding, and as soon as we looked into it and realised that, there was no question of having to do something.
I got a bit of a health scare in 2019 and a bit of repercussion from what's happened to my internals. When I got the all clear that there was nothing really bad, I decided to retire, but I needed to have something to occupy me apart from the air ambulance. I can't just sit volunteering in the shop. I need to be either keeping myself busy or going doing other things. And I used to do a bit of woodwork as a boy, and then I've done a few little things, and it's progressed into making all sorts of things, like, I don't know, to my right here is a toy trainer made for a young lad. And it's just something to keep me going. When I'm doing the sales, I'm going to give half the money that I get for anything towards the air ambulance.
So you can ring Dad in an evening and he'll be hoovering the air ambulance charity shop in Buxton and helping them with their stock, and multiple times a week, and every weekend, I've got a stall, I'm doing this talk, or I've got a Christmas market, and they'll always be doing something, and it's like his pride and joy. And for him to be doing so much, I think just sets a really good example to other people.
The good news is they used to call me Mr. Buxton when I was racing, and now they call me Mr. Air Ambulance, so I'm happy to carry that handle. So to sort of summarise everything, I don't think I'd be where I was now without my wife and 2 girls. Start again. You can cut that out. Yeah, overall, everything that's happened to me has happened not to me, it's to me and my family. And they've been a great support. And when we hear about a mission in a helicopter, they say they've done 40 odd thousand rescues. It's not 40,000 people, that, it's 40,000 people's families. And I just feel blessed that everything's come out the other side. I can now talk about the air ambulance, try and help people, make it aware that it's important to keep it going. But massive thanks to my wife and 2 girls for being there for me when I needed them.